What's up guys, Chris here, back into Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, and today we're going to go over some of the best skills and abilities that you're going to want to unlock as soon as possible. Many of these, as a matter of fact, are going to be unlockable as soon as the first few levels, and they can even last you all the way into the end game, so they will keep their usefulness for the entire duration of your playthrough, which is why you will want to prioritize some of these abilities over the others before fully investing into each and every single one of these that you have available. That is why in today's video I'm going to go over a build that you're going to want to evolve as you progress through the game, and this is going to be helpful to you no matter if you're on the first playthrough, on the second one, or whatever difficulty is that you're choosing. So let's jump in it, and of course if you enjoyed this video, a thumbs up on it would be super appreciated. Now I'm going to start things off with the survival category over here. There's some abilities over here that I invested some points into as soon as level 3, especially since I was playing on Jedi Grandmaster, and a few of these were extremely useful for that difficulty. The first one was of course the superior blocking, and this basically does one thing. It allows Cal to take less block stamina damage from incoming attacks, and since you're basically going to be blocking enemies, parrying and deflecting the entirety of the game, this is going to be useful to you from the very beginning all the way to the end game. You can unlock this by level 3, I believe, and it's definitely something that I recommend you doing. Of course, it requires you to invest 1 point into the survival skill, which also increases your maximum HP, but all of this is very useful. You're going to tremendously increase your survivability by just using these two passives over here. But the superior blocking in its own right is an amazing all-around passive. It basically lets you take more blows from the enemy before fully depleting your stamina. Let's say for example you're fighting big groups of enemies, or enemies that tend to spam their attacks, such as for example the Purge Troopers, an enemy boss. This is going to let you pretty much keep that block up, that guard up, and take all of that damage in before fully depleting that stamina. So definitely something extremely useful just by investing a couple of points into. I'm going to go over the rest of the other abilities into the survival skill, but since I was talking about an early build, I'm going to move on to the other one, which is the Lightsaber Tree. And there's a couple of skills over here that you will want to invest points into as early as you can. First of all, we have the overhead and the leaping slash. I've talked about these in a previous video, but early on in the game, Cal doesn't necessarily have a heavy attack. You don't really have a heavy attack by default, even though by the first few levels many of the enemies might have one, so they might pose trouble to you, because heavy attacks in general do either a lot more damage to your HP or take more of your stamina bar in case you're trying to block them, and the same applies to the enemy. What overhead slash and leaping slash do is just that. It lets you deal a ton of damage either to their HP bar, either to their stamina bar, and if you have these two over here, you can actually do a chain. You can chain them together. You can start with the overhead slash and then do another attack with the leaping slash. For example, let's say you're going up against an enemy with some great defenses. You're going to use the overhead slash to take down its stamina bar and the leaping slash to basically finish him off. And this is a nice clean way to take down more menacing enemies, especially in the early stages, but this is going to be useful even in the late game, so you're going to use this ability quite a bit. Of course, to even reach the leaping slash, you might want to invest a point into dash strike, which is something that you're going to want anyway. Early on in the game, this is going to be the first gap closer that you're going to have access to, and this is essentially what it means. Your character is going to dash towards the enemy and it will slash their face or body in half. That is pretty much it. It's also considered a heavy attack, so this means that you're not only going to do a ton more damage to their HP, but if they do have some defenses, you're also going to be able to break them, or at the very least take huge chunks out of them. But this is a very good attack. It's extremely useful early on. It only costs 1 skill point, and it's such a good gap closer. You can even upgrade this with the improved dash, which essentially doubles the distance that you can cover. Now moving on still into the lightsaber tree, another skill that you're going to want to invest points into also by level 10 to 15 is the sprint strike. This is one of the best abilities in the game, mainly because it is absolutely free. All you need to do is sprint and attack the enemy, and Cal will do this overhead attack, this overhead heavy attack, at no cost. So again, having an attack at the end of your sprint chained into it is going to be of tremendous help, and this can be useful against both enemies as well as bosses. Now if you reach this point, chances are that you are about level 10 or have used about 8 to 10 skill points by this time. So from this point on, there's a couple of things you can do. Of course, if you're on higher difficulties, I recommend you going back into the survival skill. Otherwise, if you don't feel like your survivability is too low, you can start speccing into the force, especially starting with the force attunement. This is going to increase your maximum force, which will let you use your abilities much more often. But let's go back at the survival skill first, with one point over here very important, which is the improved steams. At first you might not require this, especially since your HP bar is not going to be that big and your steam packs are going to be enough to heal you almost completely, but eventually as your HP bar increases, either because you've invested points into the survival skills, either because you've unlocked the secrets that increase your HP at each 3 secrets unlocked, it doesn't matter, but eventually you will want the improved steams, as these will give you more HP back when you're using them. Now since we're still on the subject of steam canisters, there's another ability that you can unlock, but it is going to be into the middle or end game. So this is the power of friendship. As you can see, it's in the outer circle, but the power of friendship makes it so that your steam canisters completely refill your force meter as well, not just your HP. And as you reach the mid to end game, especially on the higher difficulties, this is going to be extremely helpful. It means that in fights against multiple enemies, this is going to help you out a lot, since you're going to be able to spam your force abilities even more. Now of course this is going to take some time to unlock, but there are some other skills you might want to invest some points into as soon as you can. One of them, again back into the survival skill tree, is the precision evade. This is maybe not that useful on lower difficulties, since you can easily dodge enemies. Your window of parrying, blocking and dodging is going to be much greater, but on the Jedi Grandmaster this might be a very good skill to invest points into, especially since it slows down enemies briefly when doing a dodge, and even more so it lets you recover a small amount of force. And even though it does specify here that the amount of force that you recover is small, it's actually quite significant. It's about 20%, so you can pretty much use one ability with each dodge that you do. So definitely a very good skill to invest points into. The same goes with the enhanced force recovery over here. If you simply want to have force available to you all the time, you can also invest points into these. As I was saying, you're going to be blocking enemies anyway, so what this does is that when you defeat an enemy, but even more so when you block an enemy, you regain some force power back. So this is going to help you out with that as well. Now moving on to the rest of the abilities, most of these are going to be unlockable as you progress through the game and unlock other abilities in your arsenal through gameplay. One of the first ones that I actually unlocked as soon as I could was the Lightsaber Throw. Even though it costs 3 skill points, this is only going to be unlockable once you get both the force pull and the force push, so you might want to do the first 3 or 4 planets and complete the missions in them, and only then this is going to be available to you. So quite a bit into the game, but not too much. What this ability does is pretty self-explanatory. You can just throw your lightsaber into the enemy and get it back. Pretty simple. It's a very useful skill, especially since sometimes you might not be able to reach a certain enemy. Sometimes you might want to just throw your lightsaber into the enemy to deal some fast damage. This is going to be extremely useful for that. You can even further augment this, as a matter of fact, with the power throw, and this will let you throw your lightsaber even further away. So eventually you can do that, but again, this is going to cost you 5 points. I'm not sure if you are going to want to prioritize this over something else. There is one skill here at the top that you will absolutely want to get as soon as it is available to you. So this is the Lightsaber Mastery, to the point that you might even want to prioritize this over some of the other passives or actives over here that might also be very useful. So if you can get this earlier than the other ones, definitely do that. You can increase all lightsaber damage with the Lightsaber Mastery. So so work your way with the lightsaber mastery as fast as possible. Otherwise, the rest of the points here are pretty self-explanatory. If you want to go with more survivability, just increase your HP with the expert and the enhanced survival skill. You can also go with the personalized themes, as I was saying in the past, which increases your health canister, HP regeneration, so this is also useful, but again, only in the end game. There's also the agile deflection, though this isn't going to be that much of a game changer. I mean, it is useful when you're sprinting to have Cal automatically deflect all the incoming bullets. It can definitely be a very good quality of life change, but if you're already a diligent player, you might not find that much of a use for this. Again, this ability doesn't reflect bullets back into the enemy, it just deflects them at random locations, and if you want to actually take them down, you're going to want to fully reflect them back into these enemies. As far as the rest of the upgrades go, these are going to be available as you progress through the game and unlock all of your other abilities, which are the force pull and push, though I would argue that the force pull might be a little bit better to invest points into early on, especially in terms of the grasping pull, because this lets you basically pull in a target to you and instantly execute them with a lightsaber to the chest, or even throw them in a gap, basically. Even more so against those nasty and really pesky robots that tend to shoot you from afar. This is going to be useful against those as well. Otherwise, you can just invest points into the burst slow. This is the next ability that I would probably invest points into, because it basically lets you slow a full party of enemies, and this is going to be extremely useful. If you're getting overwhelmed, I believe that a burst slow is going to be much more useful than investing points into something else here in the skill tree. On the other hand, if you do want to go with the lightsaber skill tree, there are some other abilities over here that are still going to be extremely useful. One of them is the delay thrust, another very powerful damage, a far-reaching ability, as a matter of fact, that can pretty much penetrate your enemy's guard since it's so good. Of course, the trick over here is that you kind of have to delay your second attack in order to do it, which is not always accessible to you. Sometimes the enemies simply spam you with their attacks, some of these enemies might have fast attacks, so you might not have the window of opportunity to actually do a delay thrust. But yeah, this is it. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Let me know down below what were the first skills you went with when you first got the game. In the meantime, if you enjoyed this video, a thumbs up on it would be super appreciated. Also, don't forget to subscribe and activate that notification bell, and I'm gonna see you guys in the next one.